New episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have Toby here. You're the founder of Bimotal, a pretty fascinating company. I mean, you guys have enabled a lot of people to get out there and be active with electronic powertrains that are pretty, more compact and more efficient than what's been out there previously. And you put them into bikes, into a bunch of other places, and now you've gotten this great award too with Time as a best invention of the year, which is incredibly impressive. So congrats on that. So I'm excited to have you here and tell
Appreciate it.
your story.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ben. Really excited to be here and kind of share with the world what we've been working on. So thanks for hosting me.
Awesome. So, how did your passion for, the electronic vehicle space and tinkering around that, like how did that interest initially begin?
Yeah, so I think I was maybe like 12 years old when I got my first Sharper Image Razor electric scooter. And after about 1 or 2 weeks of owning that, I decided it was much too slow. So I started looking for larger batteries, bigger motor, and that just spiraled into kind of a wild hobby that took over my parents' garage, consumed all of my nights and weekends. And so, say throughout high school, I built maybe 8 electric scooters and 5 electric go-karts, and ended up interning at Tesla when I was still in high school, 17 years old, and that was kind of my foot in the door at Tesla, and that was just a really big passion of mine from a pretty early age.
Because you were tinkering so much, I mean, you probably learned how to take all this stuff apart, how to build your own motors at that point in time. Like, what kind of, like, did you really have that kind of skill set? Were you already thinking of, like, hey, I can maybe build something out of this on my own? Like, that developed later on, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely developing the skill set. I would say I was doing more like system integration where I was using components and building vehicles from those components, which, there are full companies that do just system integration. I wasn't yet building stuff from like the low level finite element of, let's say, motor windings or something. I wasn't quite at that level yet, but I definitely had it in my mind that someday I'm going to start an electric vehicle company. I didn't know what yet, and I was bummed that Tesla beat me to the punch, but I knew I was going to do something.
So, what was it like at Tesla? Like, how impactful was that to building bimodal eventually?
Yeah, I would say it was really a massive impact. Huge amount of kind of my training, how to think about engineering and build products and be in an organization. And I was pretty lucky where I got to see it starting in 2009, and it was about 250 people that summer in San Carlos. And then we got the Palo Alto office, then we got the NUMMI plant in Fremont. And kind of every summer I went back while I was in college, it got bigger. And so I think I left when it was maybe 30,000 people in 2019, and now they're, I think, well over 100,000. So it's cool to see that growth. And now I'm on the opposite side where I'm trying to get bimodal from about 10 people to hopefully 100 or 200 in the next few years here. So
What made you get to the point where what made you get to the point where you're like, I'm gonna leave Tesla and like really build this on my own here?
yeah, there was sort of an intersection of a couple things. So, we were doing Model 3 production ramp, and I was heavily involved with that. And we had hit some kind of key targets that I was just working like crazy towards. So it was 5,000 units a week was the target at the time. They're now doing way more than that. But we were, I think in 2018, we were doing about 10 units a week, and then ramping from that to 5,000 units a week in 9 months was pretty crazy. So I hit that kind of milestone. Um, I had been at the company for about 5 years full time and was still learning a lot, but I kind of felt like my rate of learning had slowed down. And so I was like, where am I going to learn the absolute most and fastest? And kind of had the business in my mind. And then the last kind of intersection was actually a ski accident I had that led to a knee injury. And I also like to bike, and the knee injury was causing issues with trying to mountain bike. I just could not push hard on my pedals or go up hills. So I had kind of this intersection like in my career, personal need with the knee injury, and then passion for mountain biking and electric vehicles. And kind of all three, four of those things intersected around the same time in 2019.
And when you were thinking of building this company, like what were you thinking was going to be the foundation of it? Like how are you going to start it?
Yeah, I started small, and it was really just me. Kind of, I didn't even have a garage at this point in time. It was a kitchen in an apartment in SF right before COVID. Um, so I first I was like, can I actually build this prototype of this motor that drives through a disc brake? And so I just kept working on that. Um, and then once the concept got a little more traction and I did a bunch of interviews over Zoom with people and got a lot of like positive feedback, I decided to make it real. And so from there, it was like, okay, I need to hire some people and we actually need to build a team. So early on, it was like, hey, I just want to build this motor for my bike. Just left a stressful job. Like, I'm just going to tinker and enjoy life. But then it was quickly like, hey, I think I could build this into something more. Um, and that just slowly evolved into more and more.
What was different about the motor initially? Like, what did you do that, made you stand out from the beginning?
Yeah. So I would say I was solving very specific pain points that I had. Um, if you look back, especially in 2019, e-bikes were pretty heavy, pretty expensive. And if you have a high-end mountain bike, they're maybe $5,000, and to get an electric version of that is probably $8,000. Um, and so I really wanted a way to keep my bike for the cost reason, but also I like the way it handled. I like the components on it. And if you look at the offerings on the market for aftermarket e-bike systems, there's a couple different ways. So one, there's many companies that do what's called a friction drive. So it's like a roller that just drives your bike's tire with friction. So Clip is an example of this, or Ruby. Um, there's a couple other ones, I think Pika Boost. And then there's different kits that are like mid-drive kits. So you have the Fang, where it's a motor that goes under your bottom bracket, basically where your pedals are for the bike. Um, there's issues with these systems. So the aftermarket mid drives, like from Bafang, you'll hit those on any rock, like any trail you go on. They're just, and you have to like drill holes in your frame or put hose clamps. They're pretty, you know, don't want to do that to a nice bike. The friction drives just don't work. You can't put those on a knobby mountain bike tire. So there really wasn't a solution for, hey, I've got this mountain bike I love. I want to add power to it. There was not a good solution for that.
So how are you thinking, like Toby, initially of how you're going to market this? Like, was it the focus on these people who had like higher end mountain bikes but didn't want to go to the next tier? Or like, what were you thinking was going to be your initial like market?
Yeah, I would say it is, our beachhead is very much the high-end mountain biker who either they're thinking about an e-bike but really don't want to pull the trigger, like fully commit. They still want their pedal bike, or maybe they have multiple bikes and they don't want to buy five different e-bikes. They might just want one motor that they can move between their fleet of bikes. And it's more common than you think in this industry, actually, where people have five, six bikes. It's a bit of a hobby and passion for these folks. So lots of use cases there. We have people who, yeah, they're a little e-bike resistant, but they like the idea of having like a bailout or a boost or some help where they want to be mostly pedaling most of the time. But then they can have the system and add it when they need it or only apply it when they want it. So um, basically anyone who is thinking about an e-bike but has reservations, or anyone who wants a lot of flexibility. Yeah.
So, part of I think why people really like bimodal is that the motors, like the whole powertrain system is like micro compared to a lot of what's out there. Just so much smaller, it's more compact, more efficient. Like how did you go about making it like that? Yeah, I mean it's incredible how small it is.
Yeah. Um, Man, a ton of stuff went into that. It's crazy, and part of the reason it's kind of expensive is because of all the levers we've pulled to make it high performance. So, as I started building the system and the company, I realized like, hey, I don't want to just like slap together off the shelf parts. I want to like design every single thing from scratch and make the best possible thing, and that's been the mentality. So, kind of starting with the motor, and people see this and they think this is a motor. Well, this is actually a drive unit. So there's a motor here, and then there's a multi-stage gearbox inside here, and that's how we get a lot of torque and power from a small system. As you have gear reduction, you have a high-speed motor underneath. It's a little hard to see with the contrast. Underneath this plastic cover here, we have a drive inverter. So that does all of the power modulation. And if you like do a cross section in CAD or look at this thing, there's literally no dead airspace. We're battling, you know, we're battling for fractions of millimeters with like general CAD design, and then some of our tolerances for press fits and bearing fits and stuff are on the order of like 18 microns or so. So just everything is really tight, really precise. And I kind of took the approach of like, okay, if I was designing an iPhone or an Apple Watch, like how would I go about it and not waste any space? And I took the same approach here. So those things combined with our motor designer did a lot of the Model 3 motor design, and then he spooled up some servers to help us design this motor. So we actually did, I think we did 85 million permutations on this motor. And I think they only did somewhere on the order of 5 to 10 million for the Model 3 motor. So we actually did more, cloud simulations for this system, when we're developing this product. So kind of all those things combined and just a crazy passion to make it small and dense is what led to the result.
Do you think that that's had like a big aspect on the success of the product, not from like a functionality standpoint, but from like a marketability that like people look at it and like they're like, wow, like it really packs this much of a punch and it's that tiny.
That's the hope. I'm going to be totally honest. I think a lot of people don't believe it or understand it. Pretty much everyone who gets on it is amazed. They're like, "This, there's no way this will do what you says it does." And then they get on it. They're like, "This is crazy." So we're still struggling because we don't have thousands and thousands of units in the field yet. We have low hundreds. So I think as we get the message out, yeah, absolutely. I think that's going to help. But right now, we're still battling this like stigma or disbelief. A lot of people think it's fake. They don't actually think it's going to do what we say it'll do. And so we just have to do a little education there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that it's like incredible how much power it packs. And you look at it, you're like, how can this actually really handle like it all? Like, how can it actually move me like that? Because it's so much smaller than even like the city electronic bikes. Like that's what so many people are used to, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And it's probably twice as powerful. Like I commute on this and I've ridden the city bikes and I have friends who use this and I'm like, Toby, this is so much more power than the city bike. I'm like, yep. Yeah.
So also like starting with bicycles, like how, I mean, you mentioned like the mountain bike kind of ideal fit there, but like how do you envision it scaling within the bicycle space?
Yeah. Is it cool if I share my screen on the Zoom here?
Yeah, for sure. Let me just make sure you
Okay.
have permission to do good.
Okay. So kind of talking about the mountain bike space, I'm going to show one screen. All right. So this is a company called Bowhead, and they make these adaptive trikes, or basically adaptive bikes is what they call them. Um, so they're hand pedal bikes, and they let folks who are handicaps, kind of ride outdoors and ride on trails, and they're super super awesome bikes. We've actually found that our system works directly with these bikes, and these bikes traditionally use other electric motors here at the hand cranks, but the motors that Bosch or Shimano provides aren't sensitive enough, and so they found that hey, if we add our motor with a throttle hand control, the user actually gets a lot more of a boost that they need to either just get started or kind of move a little bit faster. So this is a really cool application we found that wants a light, high power motor. So that's kind of one application, and then
So it works together with an existing system can amplify it.
yeah, yeah. And eventually like it would be able to just be our system, but right now they're not redesigning their bike for it. Um
Have you thought
yeah.
about making your own bikes?
Yes. Yeah. It's a little tricky. We have to be careful not to if you make bikes and do your own powertrain, then it'll be hard to sell powertrains to others because they might see us as a competitor.
Mm.
But the long-term vision of the company is to vertically integrate. Just need to find the right path to get there.
Yeah, I'm sure you've thought about different ideas too, Toby, of like how you can make a bike better for a powertrain.
Yes, yes. There's some interesting thermal ideas and other things you can do to just kind of make things smaller, lighter, more powerful. The goal is like you think about folks who are, I lived in an apartment in SF and carrying a bike up and down stairs. Like I'm healthy, young, I can do it, no problem. But if they're 50 pounds, it's much tougher compared to like 25 or 30 pounds. So that's where we need to go.
100%.
So
So,
the other photo I wanted to share, just while we're on that topic, we did actually find a pretty cool application with search and rescue. So we've got again same motor. It's just driving wheels attached to different vehicles. So this is the Elevate motor, and then this is a search and rescue litter. And this was a really cool application we found at a bike expo. And story is actually interesting. They said, "Oh, we've been looking for a motor for 5+ years. Nothing's light, removable, high torque." I showed them our bike motor. They said, "Wow, could this go on our stretcher?" And our team was camping at this expo, and we're like, "Give us the stretcher. We'll see if we can get it mounted overnight." So we did a like overnight hackathon. We were literally writing new code at our campsite, and we pull it off the next day. We had a system with different torque limits, different speed limits, and they had a powered search and rescue litter that is still working today.
that's amazing. How simple is it to really integrate this into an existing bike?
Yeah, so if it's got, disc brakes and it's set up for yeah, if it's set up for disc brakes that are compatible with the system, it takes maybe 30 minutes to 40 minutes to do an install.
It's not bad.
Um, yeah, we've gotten pretty fast. I think the first time install is maybe an hour, hour and a half, but we've gotten it down to about 30 minutes.
Hmm. It's amazing.
Um, and then that's like getting the system all set up. Once it's all set up, taking the motor and battery off is probably 5 to 10 seconds for each. Super quick.
Yeah. So you recently, Toby, you got the time best invention for Elevate. Can you talk a bit about like what that was like and how the impact you expect to get from that award? It's an incredible award.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten some interview requests, which has been great. I mean, I think I'm excited to talk a little bit more about the company, what we're doing, how we're doing it. I've been, I'll admit I've been so focused on the product. I haven't been like a CEO who's like telling the story traditionally. I've just been so hands-on, and I really love the engineering, but now is the time for me to actually talk about it and kind of show the world what we're doing. So I think it's a great segue into that phase of the company, and it's going to help us with sales. It's going to help us with press, and ultimately, I hope it helps us with our mission of just powering motion, making vehicles better.
Definitely. So how far along do you think you are in this mission? Like if you kind of looked at your plan, I know Tesla had like a master plan, right? If you had like your kind of grand vision, where would you say you are in that? And what are some steps you plan on taking to get to this point of where you've achieved your goal?
Yeah, that's a big one. Our mission is reducing barriers to car-free mobility, and so that's not necessarily never using a car. I use a car. I love cars. They're cool, super useful. It's just like how do we get, I think it's like 90 or 95% of trips are under 5 miles, and almost all of those don't need to be done in like a 4,000 pound vehicle. So how do we get a bigger fraction of those to be done on a bike, a cargo bike, a scooter, some other form factor vehicle no one's seen yet? That's kind of the problem set we're working on. Um, the way we're approaching it is we're starting with our core expertise, which is powertrain. So making, you know, better, more powerful motors that feel bionic, that respond to your input really well, are super exciting, more reliable. So you approach one of these vehicles and you know it's going to work. So kind of improving all of those metrics. And then moving from powertrains, like I said, eventually to full vehicles. That's so far the master plan, part one of Bimodal.
So you just also feel like, I mean, you know that like the Tesla level electronic motor just has not been applied to bikes the same way. And you're like able to really do that, and but you've designed your own version. I mean, you know what a Tesla feels like to drive. It's an incredible experience. It's like an RC car
Yeah.
in a sense. And like, why
Yeah.
not bring that to
Yeah.
bikes? It's basically like the thinking here.
Exactly. Exactly. And you know, people say like, hey, that's not what we need, more powerful bikes or more acceleration or whatever. My counter to that is it's fun. And what drives adoption? Fun. So like the more exciting, the more responsive you can make something feel, people engage with it and then they use it. And that's really the goal. So you can make something super fun, super appealing. It's going to drive adoption, and that's our mindset.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think that it does need to be made more fun. You know, like you look at that space and you're like, where have the improvements really been? I mean, like we know you can make an electronic bike. There's a lot of different brands that have that. But like, where have we seen improvements really in speed and acceleration and
Yeah.
durability over time? And like, I think that's what's exciting about what you guys are doing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's tough, there's a balance. You have to limit speed, otherwise people can hurt themselves. But there might be different things you can do where you gamify, like, hey, you need to spend X hours on this city bike, and then you can go up from a class one, which is 20 miles per hour. Maybe you can go from a class one to a class three, which is 28 if you pass some training course. So there's a lot of creative ideas we have to make it more exciting and kind of get people more performance, but in a safe way after they get the experience.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea for some people for sure. They're gonna need
Yeah.
that. Yeah. So, what are some things like we could expect from you, and from Bimodal, let's say in the next like year or so? Like, what are some of like the short-term things that you're really most excited about debuting?
Yeah. I've got a great list here. So we're excited to finally have a timeline on pedal assist. So a lot of people have been asking us for that. We'll be launching pedal assist in April of 2025. So that'll let Elevate be class one, um, yeah, class one compliant, and we're going to have a really good pedal assist system. Um, with that, we're also working on UL rated battery, and we're also looking at all the other compliance we need to get done to ship to Europe. So, targeting to ship to Europe in spring of 2025. From there, we have plans for a much sleeker and more elegant battery pack. Right now, we're just kind of using a minimum viable battery pack because all of our energy and time has been on this thing, on the motor. So really excited to make a battery pack that's as beautiful as our motor. A lot of people have asked for that, and we've had to just honestly stay disciplined and focused as a small startup with low resources. So really excited to kind of do those things that everyone's been asking for and finally get it to them. So that's probably most of 2025. We have couple other strategic discussions. So we may have other motor programs cropping up, and we'll have to grow as a team to handle those. But in terms of Elevate roadmap, what's publicly facing, those are the ones.
Those are big ones and definitely exciting ones. Toby, I think those are pretty much all the questions that I had. I appreciate you taking the time and doing this. I'm definitely excited to see where you guys go because I think you're solving a huge problem. And I think you're also going to enable a lot more people to have a lot of fun when they go outside and when they go biking, which is huge to getting people more fit. We have an obesity problem in the United States and a lot of other places. And if you can make exercise more fun, people are going to do it more and they're going to be in better health. And I love that that's really, what you guys are enabling here. So keep going. And thanks for taking the time and doing this.
Awesome. Ben, thanks so much for having me. Great questions. Really appreciate it.